Paris, December 15th, 1420. The sound of iron chains echoes through the cold stone corridors of the Louvre Palace. In a chamber that once housed royal treasures, a woman sits behind bars that gleam in the candlelight. She wears tattered silk that was once magnificent, her hair unkempt, her eyes hollow with the weight of a decade's imprisonment. This is not a common criminal or a political prisoner. This is Joanna of Naples, a woman who once ruled kingdoms, commanded armies, and held the fate of nations in her hands. Today, we reveal the extraordinary story of the queen who was forced to sleep in a cage for 10 years, a tale of betrayal, madness, and the brutal price of medieval power. How does a woman who controlled vast territories and commanded the loyalty of thousands end up confined like a wild animal? The answer lies in the treacherous world of 14th century European politics, where crown and cage were separated by the thinnest of margins. Joanna was born in 1373 into the royal house of Anjou-Durazzo, a bloodline that traced its power across Italy and France. From birth, she was destined for greatness, groomed to inherit not just wealth, but entire kingdoms. Her father, Charles III of Naples, was known as Charles the Short, a man whose physical stature belied his enormous political ambitions. Her mother, Margaret of Durazzo, was a woman of fierce intelligence who understood that in their world, a daughter's value lay not in her happiness, but in her ability to forge alliances through strategic marriage. At age 12, Joanna was already considered one of Europe's most valuable matrimonial prizes. She possessed not only stunning beauty with golden hair and piercing blue eyes, but also a sharp mind that had been honed by the finest tutors in Europe. She spoke 4 languages fluently, understood military strategy, and could navigate the complex web of medieval diplomacy with remarkable skill. Yet none of these gifts could prepare her for the nightmare that awaited. In 1386, when Joanna was just 13, her father arranged her marriage to William of Austria, a union designed to strengthen ties between the Italian kingdoms and the Holy Roman Empire. The wedding was a spectacle that lasted 3 days, with nobles from across Europe traveling to witness the ceremony. Joanna walked down the aisle in a gown embroidered with pearls and gold thread, her crown catching the light of 1,000 candles. She appeared every inch the fairy tale princess, but fairy tales rarely end well for their heroines. William proved to be a cruel and unstable husband. Historical accounts describe him as a man possessed by violent rages, who would strike servants for minor infractions and flew into jealous fits whenever other men spoke to his wife. More disturbing still were the reports of his increasing paranoia and erratic behavior. Some chroniclers suggest he suffered from what we would now recognize as severe mental illness, experiencing delusions and periods of complete detachment from reality. For 3 years, Joanna endured this torment while maintaining the facade of a dutiful wife. She learned to read the warning signs of her husband's mood changes, to deflect his anger, and to protect the servants who served under their household. But her suffering was about to take a dramatic turn. In 1389, William died suddenly under mysterious circumstances. Some claimed poison, others suggested divine intervention, but most likely he succumbed to one of the many diseases that ravaged Europe during this period. At 16, Joanna found herself a widow, but also something far more dangerous, a woman with independent power. As William's widow, Joanna inherited vast territories and enormous wealth. She controlled trade routes, commanded armies, and held the loyalty of nobles who had once served her husband. For a brief, shining moment, she tasted true freedom. She reformed laws to protect the poor, patronized artists and scholars, and demonstrated the kind of enlightened leadership that would later characterize the Renaissance. But power in the hands of a woman terrified the male nobility. Joanna's own relatives, led by her cousin Louis of Anjou, began plotting to strip her of her inheritance. They spread rumors about her moral character, questioned her ability to rule, and suggested that her territories would be better managed by male relatives. The whispers grew louder, the accusations more vicious, and the political pressure more intense. The trap was sprung in 1400 during what appeared to be a peaceful family gathering. Joanna was invited to a feast at her cousin's castle, ostensibly to celebrate the marriage of a distant relative. She arrived with only a small retinue, trusting in the bonds of family and the traditions of hospitality. It was a fatal mistake. During the feast, as wine flowed and musicians played, armed men suddenly surrounded Joanna's table. Louis of Anjou stood and declared that his cousin had been declared mentally unfit to rule, a convenient lie that would allow him to assume control of her territories. Before she could protest or flee, iron shackles were placed around her wrists, and she was dragged from the hall where she had entered as a queen. The cage that would become her prison was constructed in the tower of Louis's castle, a structure of iron bars and stone that measured barely 6 feet in each direction. It was designed not just to contain her body, but to break her spirit. The bars were spaced close enough that she could not lie down comfortably, forcing her to sleep in a perpetual crouch. A single bucket served for all her needs, and her meals were pushed through the bars like scraps thrown to an animal. For 10 years, from 1400 to 1410, Joanna endured this degradation. Her beautiful gowns were replaced with rough sackcloth, her golden hair grew matted and gray, and her once proud bearing was reduced to the hunched posture of a caged creature. Visitors to the castle reported hearing her singing at night, melancholy songs that echoed through the stone corridors like the lament of a ghost. Yet even in captivity, Joanna's intelligence remained sharp. She memorized the routines of her guards, studied the politics of her captors, and waited for her moment. That moment came in 1410 when Louis of Anjou died suddenly, leaving his own succession in dispute. In the chaos that followed, a loyal servant managed to unlock her cage, and Joanna escaped into the night. Her freedom was brief but spectacular. For 6 months, she rallied her supporters, reclaimed portions of her territory, and demonstrated that 10 years of imprisonment had not broken her will. But her enemies regrouped, and in 1411 she was captured again. This time, there would be no cage. On May 27, 1411, Joanna of Naples was executed by strangulation, her body thrown into an unmarked grave. The woman who had once ruled kingdoms died forgotten and alone, her story buried beneath the ambitions of men who feared her power. Yet her legacy endures as a reminder of the price that strong women paid in a world that could not tolerate their strength. The queen who slept in a cage for 10 years remains a symbol of resilience in the face of unimaginable cruelty, proof that even iron bars cannot cage the human spirit forever.